First, games. They're important in any series. Even if it's not perfect, what matters is a good idea. Sometimes it's not really super polished, they don't really focus on the main idea. Again, even if it's not perfect, it still usually gets refined in later entries. And it's then that I find some of my favorite games of all time, like The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, and Sonic 3, The Elder Scrolls Oblivion, Fire Emblem Awakening. But it feels like I haven't really looked at the starting point of one of my favorite series of all time, actually, number one most favorite series of all time, The Legend of Zelda. So join me as we look at the original Zelda and see what exactly it did to make the entire Zelda series such a masterpiece. Starting the game, we have several paths we can take, the closest one having an old man with a sword. The very beginning of this game is something that several people praise. Like, no dumb cutscene, you just get a sword and you get to go kill monsters. And even though I love games like Twilight Princess that have a pretty long opening, to be honest, they are not wrong and just nice to jump in and kill some monsters. A lot of the NES games around this era were linear action games, and seeing a world this big is quite impressive for the gray lunchbox known as the NES. Like, look at it. Why couldn't we get a slim one like the Japanese did? I don't mind the more linear approach some modern games take. I think this more open style fits Zelda perfectly. Game doesn't look half bad either. There are even a decent amount of different locations to explore. Okay, this is forest. This is a dead forest. These are the mountains. And that's the beach. These are decently nice, even though there's nothing thematically different about them gameplay wise. Like, it's pretty much just flat open land, and sometimes there's trees which basically act as blocks. I wish I could say that the dungeons looked better. I mean, some of them look alright, but the color choices are just bad sometimes. I don't even mind the fact that all the textures are the same. Just don't use slime green. Like, seriously. Oh right, I forgot to talk about the gameplay. Let's talk about the gameplay now. One thing special to Zelda 1 is its three elements, and in Zelda style, I'll label them as the Triforce of Puzzles, the Triforce of Exploration, and the Triforce of Combat. Did I even write anything about exploration in the script? I don't know, I think I already covered exploration, so that one's covered. Good on me. And here's something important about any game series that has a specific formula. Does Zelda 1 nail it? Oof. Kind of, I guess. Probably already know the story for this game, but I'm just gonna cover it real quick. Princess Zelda is captured by the evil Prince Ganon. You have to gather the pieces of the Triforce of Wisdom that Zelda hid. Yeah, everyone knows this already. You get the point. Save the princess. The goal of the game is basically find the 8 temples that have the 8 pieces of the Triforce. Doing this just involves basically wandering around until you find it. One good thing though is that you can pretty much take them on in any order from what I know, except for a few that you need a certain item to get into, but otherwise you can pretty much explore wherever. Okay, let's start with the combat, shall we? Base attack is a stabbing attack for stabbing dudes. When you're at full health, you can shoot a beam out of your sword, which is a shiny sword, I guess. It seems pretty simplistic, but they add more to the combat than just stabbing people. What for me personally adds more depth to the combat is the items. Anyway, let's go over some of the items and see what combat purpose they have, as well as their puzzle elements. Stuns enemies and grabs faraway items. It's pretty useful. I found myself using it a lot, and there's even an upgrade that extends the range. Yeah, it's good. It's an essential part of the toolkit, in my opinion. I mean, you get the bombs as a limited resource, but I don't feel like they're absolutely overpowered, so that's good, I guess. I believe it's required for defeating a few of the bosses, but I think you only have to use it on one of them. It's also used for blowing up walls. You're probably asking, how did I know to blow up this wall in Dungeon 3? Well, I didn't. I figured it out by accident during the boss fight. Like, would it hurt to add some cracks to the wall or something? Hello, welcome to Painting with Shrooms, where today we will be improving Zelda 1 using paint. Okay, so we're going to open up paint to everyone. Even those with potato PCs will be able to do this. Okay, grab your paintbrushes, kids, because we will be doing a little of that. And boom, we fixed Zelda 1 using paint. Thank you for coming to Painting with Shrooms. I hope to see you in some more Painting with Shrooms. Luckily, in a later dungeon, I found that by looking at the map, I could figure out what wall needed to be bombed. But it's just really dumb. You have to guess where you're able to use the bomb, and I don't like it. Like, all other Zelda games use cracks, from what I know. So yeah, I found myself either 1, guessing, or 2, just using a guide to guess which one I had to blow up. So yeah, good old trial and error, my favorite element of games. This one lights up dark rooms. It's pretty situational, to be honest. You can use it only once per room, and there is an upgrade so you can use the fire multiple times if you want, but it doesn't really help. It's pretty weak, especially since I got near the latter half of the game where I could only use my sword on most enemies. Also, you have to constantly switch between your item that you're currently using and just to get the dumb candle out to light up the room. So yeah, I don't like the implementation of the candle. Great, it's kind of cramped in my closet. I don't think this was a good idea. I think it'd be better if you could use like the select button as an item button that you'd use like special move items. Maybe like the flute, which we will get into later. I think it's a flute. Is it a flute? Okay, apparently it's called the recorder, also known as the whistle. Okay. Okay, next let's talk about the enemies that you face, or basically combat. I don't know, we're kind of intertwining everything together because I found it's what works best, I guess. Anyway, the series is known for having great monsters to fight, so let's look at a few of them. Hello everyone, Shrooms here, and today we are looking at some of the odd names for these monsters. We have the Flaming Skull Dude. It's called a Bubble Booble. Okay, we have the Dark Knight, which is also known as Dark Knight. Oh hey, slimes, those are a staple of RPGs. I'm pointing on the screen if you can know. They're called gels. Goria. Well, I don't even know what these things are, to be honest. Oh hey, bats, those are also a good staple. Great starting enemy. They're called Casey. A lot of the early monsters and monsters in general are pretty straightforward. They mindlessly wander around and sometimes shoot a projectile on you, depending on what type of monster they are. But don't worry, that's not all. There is variety. For instance, there are the wall masters. They will return you to the start of the dungeon if you get caught by them, which makes them pretty scary to face, to be honest. This is a monster that everyone is scared of, to be honest. I mean, not like a child scared that a wall monster will come out and drag him out of his house or something. Like, just, you know, it's kind of scary to face one. Dark Nuts cannot be faced head on. His robes fade in and fade out and can only be damaged by a sword. And Bubbles, Boobles, whatever they're called, can't be killed, preventing you from using your sword if you get hit. Okay, so the enemy types are all good, and none of them are unfair to fight, I would say. But let's talk enemy placement. That's something that's really important in any game. Well, they're never placed anywhere unfairly for me. Like, let's say you enter a room and instantly get hit by a monster. That never happens. But they place far too many of them. The general idea of difficulty in the combat is throwing as much enemies at you as possible, or the most annoying combination. Okay, I've covered, I think, everything in this game, from the overworld to everything else. But let's talk about the end game. I just used a guide for the final dungeon. It's a giant confusing labyrinth. It's full of dead ends and secret passageways that lead to other places, which makes it overall just a confusing map. Like, you shouldn't make the final level confusing just to make it hard. That's not good difficulty. I barely even like the final boss fight. It's probably the weakest Ganon fight I've experienced in a Zelda game. You can't even see him. You just stab him 3 times if you think he might be there, and then shoot him with a silver arrow. How did you know to shoot him with a silver arrow? I think the old man tells you to kill him with it, but I don't know. I just followed the guide, which told me to get the silver arrow, and hey, I got it. After you kill him again, you free Zelda, and credits. Overall, Zelda 1 has to be one of the weakest starting entries in any series I've seen in a while. Opposed to, let's say, Sonic 1 or Super Mario Bros. There, honestly, Super Mario Bros. Aged a little better, but Sonic 1 is just, it's fine. But again, these games still are fun, they're experiences. But with Zelda 1, I feel like it was only fun when I used a guide half the time, which I only really needed a guide half the time for stuff I was confused about. But does that really reflect good game design, though, when you need a guide to look around because you don't want to have to look into the most obscure place ever to find a clue to, let's say, unlock a dungeon boss or something? Not a dungeon boss, search a dungeon. You get what I mean. It's just not the best game design. I don't hate this game. Again, it has its moments. I think that the good old dungeon crawling element is just really fun. Trust me. Just pull out a guide if you're getting frustrated with the game, because otherwise, Zelda 1 is... Oh, how would I rate it? Like, I am against ratings, but I mean, it's a positive experience. That's all I can say. If they cut down on trial and error, and if you didn't have to look into such obscure places, if there were more hints, like let's say a crack in a wall if it could explode, or make the hints a little less vague, like stuff like that, just polish it around the edges, I feel like it'll be a whole experience. Which, I mean, is just a sign that Nintendo remake. You're doing Link's Awakening, so maybe, I don't know, touch up Zelda 1 and Zelda 2 maybe. That wouldn't be a bad idea. I think there's actually a Zelda 1 remake that was streamed in Japan. I forget how exactly it goes, but I might look into that if you guys are interested. Anyway, guys, for the subscribers that have been around for a little while, I apologize. I've just been lazy, to be honest. I'm sorry that you have to look at the sort of neck beard. I'm not sure if you can see it, but yeah, it's there. I'm a weeaboo neck beard person now. I just need a body pillow. No, wait. You know what? This weird thing that my mom made could work. Just boom! There we go, it's anime. I'm probably gonna cut that out. And good news, guys, for the first time ever in this channel's history since when I was a Let's Play channel, we will have weekly uploads. I know, crazy for me, right? I think I promised weekly uploads before, but never actually did it. But this time, we will have bigger videos every few weeks, and we'll sprinkle in, smaller videos in between. You know what I mean? Guys, and here's an apology for me being gone for so long. We'll be looking at every single game in the Zelda series. At least the main series. We're not going to go into handhelds. Good news, after the interesting experience of Zelda 1, we'll be going to A Link to the Past. Oh, wait a minute. There was something else, wasn't there? There's a sequel that Nintendo did. Oh right, it's Zelda 2. I'm not going to even mess with you guys. Oh no.